Now, David, we got to talk about the music, of course. Right from the beginning, as soon as that riff comes on from everybody's talking. But from your perspective, what is it about the music in this film that makes it stand out?
Well, it's the first time I'd ever seen a film that used experimental kind of textures and like electronics with songs from a very traditional nature right through to really sort of quite psychedelic and quite wild to this just incredible, you know, for me is like the greatest one of the greatest scores ever written by John Barry. It's so simple. I was so lucky as a young lad to inherit this soundtrack. My mother actually had the
Mm.
soundtrack album. So I was like, I get into cinema by accident. I get into cinema because I wasn't allowed out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just consume films. And growing up in Belfast back then, I think we'll all agree that there was very little to do apart from, you had your imagination, and if you're lucky, you had a video recorder. So, I get into cinema just through consuming movies, just by, the fact I just had to spend so much time indoors. But this soundtrack, I was just really lucky to actually sort of, it was in my, on my, it was in my living room. But again, it's a thing of such sort of sophistication. I mean, no one was actually sort of doing that back then. Really, no one was sort of making films
Mm.
that kind of fused, um, the actual physical score along with this kind of like chosen music, like source music,
Mm.
and then using sort of like synthesizers. A
Mm.
part of this soundtrack was recorded at a place called Sear Sound. It was actually the studio, the last place John Lennon recorded before he was shot dead. Um, and I've actually worked in that studio, and they've still got the original like modular synthesizer, the Moog modular synth
Wow.
that was actually used in this film. So I mean, but this is all stuff that I learned as I
Mm.
as I grew older and became much more interested. But at the time, when you watch something, it's a bit like watching The Wizard of Oz. You know what I mean? You're just blown away by it,
Mm.
and the music becomes a part of you. You're not really sort of looking too sort of deeply into it, but this has definitely um, retained. It's such a high quality, and I've got such a personal connection to the Midnight Cowboy theme, just because of my mother and stuff. So I've got a real personal
Mm.
that actually just lives beyond this film.
Yeah.
It's not just to do with the soundtrack, but it's just an amazing piece of work that stands alone. You don't have to see the film to love this soundtrack. You can just go out and buy it, and it will be an amazing thing from start to finish.
And as you say, John Barry supervised the soundtrack and wrote the theme, which is heartbreaking. Now, the story was that Bob Dylan had written Lay Lady Lay
Which would have ruined it.
for the film, but didn't finish the song in time. So Schlesinger went back to Everybody's Talking, which, as you say, you can't imagine the film without Everybody's Talking now. And Harry Nilsson, I mean, that voice, um, it's an incredible voice.
Well, it was actually written by a guy called Fred Neil,
Yeah,
who used to sort of he was like Bob Dylan's backing singer actually at
yeah.
Cafe Wah, and he actually wrote it about a dolphin that he actually left New York and went to Florida and actually used to just actually sing songs to the dolphins, but then it was given to Harry Nilsson, and of course it left.
Skateboard is leaving. You can skate out. That would be a good way to exit.